Good morning, everyone, and welcome to my gold and silver update. I'm JR. Thank you for joining me. We're going to be looking at the long-term trends here for gold and silver. So a couple of things that I wanted to highlight is obviously highs. I've done this before numerous times where I kind of show you guys how we look at these trends, right? Whether they're going down or whether they're going up. You have something that's very common in a trend and pretty much what defines a trend, right? So you have highs getting higher, lows getting higher. That's a definition of a bull market. You have the situation where you have a low getting higher. A low getting lower and a high getting lower. That's a definition of a bear market, right? And then you have also flat trading, which is just going sideways, not creating highs or not creating new lows, right? So if you look here back in 1979, we established a high of 1850, kind of traveled sideways here for quite some time, and then finally we broke above. Anytime you have such a long-term break, it's very unusual for the break to be false and then comes down and then just continues to go down, right? Usually these long-term highs, when they're broken, they just need to find more buyers in order to keep that momentum up, especially when it's long-term highs, right? So again, 1979 we saw a high, 1850 we breached that, we created a high, right? In a perfect world, what we want to see is we want to see a move up, right? Then a move down, right? And what you would like to see is you want to see this come here to this line, test that line, and then just continue to go higher. That's not always what we find. Sometimes what we see is something like this, where again, you have the move up, you breached this high, right? This resistance now turns support. You breach it, right? And then you have to find the next main level of support in order to find that support before continuing to go higher, right? So kind of like this is really what you'd like to see. You want to see something like this, where again you establish a high right here, right? Let's say right here you establish that high of 1028 or 1030, right? And then you break that high. Once you break that high, you come up, you come down, you test resistance, now turn support, and then you continue the trend, right? And that's pretty much what we saw here, right? We saw highs after highs continue being broken, right? Until eventually this one broke, and this level here did not serve as a long-term support. It ended up breaking, I think, right? Yep, that's it. So then it breaks, right? Now what happens is you find the next major level, which is still this one here, and then you find support, right? And now what happens is you start going up higher again, right? Now we can look at the same thing, right? You have a low, establish low, break it, and then establish new lows, and new lows, right? So again, same thing here. You establish a high here. Finally, when you break above it, so much momentum, you don't even come down here and test it anymore. You just continue to go straight up, right? Now what we have is we have a situation where, again, a long-term high has been broken, right? 1920 has been broken. And at this point, I'm expecting something very similar to this, right? Where, again, you do have that high, the high is broken, comes down, test support, test the next main level of support, which is roughly this area here. Actually, I'll do this. It looks a little bit better if I do this, right? Test this major level, and then it continues to go higher. So that's what I'm looking at here, right? We see that we have a major high here. We break that high, and now the next major low, if we're looking at the monthly chart, is this area here. Is this area here, right? That's the next main level. So we can see a pierce here to the mid 1600s. I don't think we'll go down too far because we do have a nice trend line over here, right? So I think 1650 will probably find support before it continues to go higher. Again, once we break this level here, more than likely what's going to end up happening is that You're going to come back down here and continue to go higher and higher and higher. Again, all these moves are calculated. You know, we can easily calculate these moves. Let's come over here and come back here. And the way you want to calculate the minimum move that you're expecting from a major breakout, like something like this, right, is all you have to do is measure this, right? How big is this area here? And that's the minimum move that you're expecting. And you can see that this actually worked, right? The minimum move that we expected was at least to 1400. It ended up going to 1900. So I expect the same thing here, right? So if I take this here, right, and this is the high, right? So the minimum move that we'll be expecting here is something like this, right? So we're looking at a move to at least 2800, right? So again, you have the breach, and now if I look at the if I take up some, if I go to the weekly chart, we see a little bit of a nicer form, right? A nicer pattern, right? Looks like we have some sort of a flag, right? Right? And again, if I'm looking at the weekly, then this is the major level of support. So I think if I'm looking at the weekly chart, I'm assuming what we want to do is we want to look at what happens around this area here. But again, ultimately, if I'm looking at the monthly chart, this whole area could serve as support. Again, very serious bull market. And another thing that I want to add here also is if you look at the pound, the gold pound chart, which is this one. I think this is what happened. I think this is what I'm expecting from gold, right? So again, right, this is just the gold market against the British pound, right? So you can see that it did something very similar to what gold is doing right now. So if we look at the dollar, this is pretty much where the dollar is right now, right? So again, you've breached the all-time high of 1194 pounds, right? You break the high, and you come back down and you test the next psychological level. So what you have here is, again, a break, and then it tests the next major support level, which is this level. This is the resistance now turned support. So I'm expecting something very similar to this, and I think I've highlighted this in my previous analysis, that the gold market is looking very much like the pound market against gold, where again we breached above it, the all-time high. Now we come back down, we break this level of support here for some time, for just a little bit, and then we move higher, and I think that's what's happening, right? So again, if you notice, if I draw these trend lines, if I draw this trend line from here to there, or from here to here, right, I could have also done something like this, right? So technically speaking, we should have, or we could have expected, right, if we would have been trading this trade here, then what we could have expected was a move up, come down, come test this level here, because ultimately this is the level, this is the zone, right? I trade in zones, right? So this is the zone. So this one in particular didn't pierce this zone, but again, it just found a lot of buyers just above the zone, and it continued to go higher. And again, same thing here. This would be the next new zone here for the British pound, right? So you would expect on this level here, although a big zone, you would expect this the British pound against gold to find some support within this zone here, okay? Although it's a big zone, it could be here, it could also find some support here, but again, this is really the zone you want to look out for, okay? And again, we can also take this and draw a trend line here, and we could also say that there's a possibility, or we want to leave open the possibility that this thing on the pound can come down from 1200 all the way to the mid thousands, right? And that's on the British pound gold trade, right? So again, we're not talking British pounds, we're talking US dollars. So if I'm looking at the gold trade, this is the first level of support. This is kind of looking like a pennant. Remember, the way we measure these pennants is from where the original breakout happened, which was back down over here, which would suggest that once this pennant does break, this is how you're going to measure it. You're going to measure it like this, and then you're looking at a minimum move to 2,500. Okay, so the gold trade still looking very, very, very positive. I love this gold trade right now. To be honest with you, I like platinum a little bit better than I like gold, but that's another video. Gold, platinum has just a really it's been moving up much faster than gold has, and I think other metals, being that gold was the first one to really break out above all metals, it might be easier for the other metals to outperform gold, although I still do expect gold to continue to move much, much, much higher. Hope you enjoy the video. We'll see you next time.